me out to the ball game. Take me out with the crowd.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Green Grass and White Bases podcast. We're really excited to have Rodrigo Espinel in the chat with us today. Rodrigo is student manager extraordinaire at Rutgers right now, working with the Rutgers baseball team. He's in his 5th year there. He started up his grad program, and he's still helping the team out. I mean, just the man that makes the operation run behind the scenes. So just a quick introduction for you guys on Rigo. He played high school baseball here in New Jersey. He batted .515 his senior year in high school. Ton of hits, great ball player, hit a home run in his senior year, so he could really swing it at the plate. Even on the mound, I read an article recently. I had no idea that you used to pitch back in the day, but I read an article that's right from before your senior year saying that you were the ace on the team. And the stats prove it. You had 20 Ks in 16 innings as a senior. So on the diamond, your prowess was exceptional. And then your role now behind the scenes is something that anybody at Rutgers can tell you is just invaluable. You make the operation run smooth. So if there's any other bio stuff that I missed, any other introduction stuff that you wanna let the people know, please do. But I hope I did you justice, man, because
For sure.
without you, it's undoubted that the operation couldn't run the way it does. So shed some light on your background. Let the people know who you are.
Appreciate that. Appreciate that, E. Yeah, so I mean you kinda hit everything, the whole background in high school, played 4-year varsity at Bergen Charter up at a charter school in Hackensack. I also was a two-year varsity bowling player my junior and senior year, where senior year I was on a roll, but obviously didn't make it to states. Actually missed states by 14 pins and stuff like that. But you basically hit everything that I would describe myself as. But yeah, but we're good. Yeah,
That's news to me, man. I wish I had known before now that you were a bowler. We might have had to hit the lanes a couple times, but
for sure. Hey, we still
yeah,
can.
yeah, that's awesome, man. A lot of fun. We've had some conversation about kids playing different sports and stuff. So being in the bowling alley, getting your hand-eye right with that stuff's got to be valuable, especially to say you turned around and hit .515 in the springtime on the baseball field. So that's no joke. So yeah, I guess student manager doesn't seem to be an appropriate title. It seems like you do more than the first impression of that title holds. So just shed some insight onto like how you ended up here and what your day-to-day looks like, the type of job that you do and the role that you play in the Rutgers baseball program.
Yeah, so out of high school, senior year applying to a bunch of schools, just trying to get my foot into, the next level. I still had college baseball in mind at the collegiate level. And, after the senior year that I had a couple of D2 offers. But ultimately something that, kind of took me back and actually like made me just rethink whether I should go the baseball route or just go educational route was definitely my parents. Just because something that they instilled in me was always education always comes first, and obviously I would love to be playing baseball still to this day, but at one point it's always going to end. So I just kind of they didn't have some schools that offered me didn't have the major that I wanted to study, so I ultimately decided to actually Rutgers wasn't my first option. I was I was accepted to go to the University of New Haven, and I went to a bunch of their sport management events and fell in love with the school. But ultimately, for financial reasons, I couldn't afford to go to New Haven, and I applied to Rutgers, and thank God they accepted me. And what's crazy is that I came to Rutgers without touring the campus, knowing what they had major wise and stuff like that. So I took a really big gamble on that. But looking back at it now, I don't regret anything that I made. Obviously, with the whole student manager coming in my freshman year, I still want to be involved in sports just because, I'm a huge baseball guy, but I also used to play soccer and basketball back in my day. And I still wanted to be part of baseball. So the first thing I thought about was, okay, like if I wasn't going to be able to play, I still wanted to do something and be part of, a staff or a sport team. And that's when I reached out to current player of ops for us at the baseball team, Peter Barron. And he was nice enough to, reach back out to me, give me an interview. And that's where that's where everything started with Rutgers. But yeah, student manager, my first 4 years of undergrad was great. Obviously, freshman year was a whole different coaching staff than what it is now. And I could definitely say that where we're at now, it's progressing in the positive route. As a student manager, we do a bunch of stuff behind the scenes when it comes to, getting ready, when it comes to helping Peter Barron out with, travel, team meals, on the field, basically setting up or hitting fungos, throwing BP, stuff like that, just to help the coaches out, so they have one less thing that they have to worry about. And we have so much stuff that goes on, up in the office with our Rapsodo, bats, other pitching machines that we use to help our players and our coaches, get to that extra level where we want to achieve at.
Yeah, no doubt, man. I think the role you guys play in making everything run smoothly, I think the impression a lot of people get is that we just show up to the field, we practice ends, we lift ends, we go play on the weekends, and there's not a ton of like credence paid to how things run behind the scenes to make sure everything stays smooth. So just incredible value that you and Pete and the rest of those guys add to make sure that everything runs smoothly. I definitely want to dig deeper into that subject, but I heard you talk about the value of making sure you had the right major and the value of like getting a fit financially, location wise, all that stuff when it comes to picking a school. So if you could shed some light on that for us and just like how important it was for you coming out of high school to make sure you found a place that had the major you wanted, found the place that kind of fit your budget and fit the mold that you needed for college. Like just speak on the importance of those aspects.
Yeah, I mean, kind of going back to what I was saying before, where, financially, I didn't really, have the money to go to a school to be paying $20,000 a year just to attend for a 4 year school, not counting graduate school. It's definitely a huge decision for anyone to make, but it's definitely something that is important just because at the end of the day, you don't want to be in debt, over $150,000 rather than, going to a cheaper school, which Rutgers is still, gave me more financial help, but Rutgers is still Rutgers. Is one of the top schools in the country. And so that didn't really make me, regret my decision just because I knew what Rutgers, stood for and what it still stands for. So that's definitely something that I can say, made the decision, quote unquote, a little easier just because I knew that, yeah, maybe I didn't go and tour the campus before I accepted my letter, but I also knew that Rutgers had a great name for itself. So like, regardless, I still was gonna make the most out of it.
Right. And I think that's a really important thing. I know when we do the summer camps that Coach Garza runs at Baton Field, like he always has us coaches break down some recruiting stuff to the players. And we always say, as you mentioned, right, like how important the education is. And you said your parents stressed that to you. I know I went through the same thing. I think a lot of guys have a similar experience going from high school to college. But that's an aspect that I think a lot of people miss is that first off, if your education is really important to you and you can understand how important your GPA is as a metric to your career, then opportunities open up for you educationally where you can kind of have that ability to get that financial aid or get whatever it is to make sure your parents aren't shouldering the entire burden of you going to school. I know some guys have an opportunity where their parents help them out. Some guys don't have that opportunity, but whoever's paying that bill at the end of the day, if you understand the importance of your education, you're going to have better opportunities and you're going to be able to make sure you can get through that college experience at the school that you want because more opportunities open up for you. So
Yeah,
I'm definitely
yeah,
glad that you were able to bring that up and touch on that.
yeah. Kind of going back a little bit on the importance of just regardless of whether or not you get the financial money that you want out of high school, doesn't mean that you can't get to where you want to get to. You know what I mean? That's kind of something that I feel like a bunch of kids now these days feel that, okay, I'm not getting this money, I'm never gonna get it. No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you start, it matters where you end. You know what I mean? That's something that's very important for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I think that's where that foundation is super important, where if you can have that base of my grades are crucial to me getting to the next level academically or athletically, then you can definitely have that understanding of, okay, if I continue to do this throughout my college career, things are going to open up for me. So I think just to that vein, like a lot of guys will say, oh, I want to play baseball at this school, or I want to play baseball at that school, whatever the name might be. It's just important to realize how many factors go into deciding on where you go to school. And of course, your experience is a little bit different, but you've become part of our community the same way, same way any guy that's on the field is. And for you to have that same perspective academically, I think speaks volumes, where it's like we need to have our grades right. We need to make sure we're in a position where we can kind of have some fun when we're at school instead of worrying about nickel and dime and everything.
Mhm.
So all of the components that go into picking where you're going to end up at the next level are important, no matter where you fall into the team dynamic. So that's awesome that you were able to shed that light and you had that experience. So touch on the difference. Give us a little bit of insight into like what you guys do in the office. I know we use the bats technology, at least when I was there. I mean, maybe it's changed since 2 years ago when I was there.
We're the same.
Yeah, let us know what that technology looks like, what the video system looks like. I try to give some people that have asked me a preview of what those cameras look like at the field, even at home and on the road. And then the role that you guys play on game day, right? I know before the game, like you said, you guys are hitting fungos and shooting fly balls out of the machine, and then you go right back behind the backstop and you're getting velos and making sure everything's recorded. So give us as broad of a scope of that as you can, however much time you want to take, and just let us know like what it looks like operationally in the office, on the field. Like what's a game day look like in your role?
Yeah, so the one major, tool that we use is Bats. Bats SiteX. It's basically a quote unquote online book that connects to four cameras that we have behind home plate, in center field, and on, down first and third base line. And it's basically, we start all four cameras at the same time. And it's basically an online book where mark the game as it is, and it doesn't connect to each camera, because at the end of the day, at the end you have to download the chips and stuff like that and line it up. But it's been, I feel like it's been a huge help for our, our club now, just because a bunch of our guys and coaches as well use that film to basically, change a batter or a pitcher with their mechanics. It's something that you can get from all four angles, so you can see a different angle and a different movement for each pitch for every single at bat. So if when you were with us 2 years ago, if you wanted to see, let's say you were facing Ryan Lasco, second at bat, you want to see what you threw, the third pitch of that bat, you can go and manually check that exact pitch, because everything that we record will go from pitch to pitch. There's no pitch that's ever skipped. And I feel like now, as with the role that I have, where I'm quote unquote overseeing our other student managers now. I know RJ, he's the one that's basically taken the role that I had last year, with being responsible with, doing the badge during the game, lining it up after the game, compressing the entire video and posting it on the web for all the guys to see. But it's important, just like the Rapsodo is important. Everything that we've used or that we have right now has helped us to get to where we're at now, and it's going to help us get, even better. But during a game day, everything's different. So it all depends on whether we're home or away. But usually on a regular home game day, we'll get down to the field. Let's say stretch is at 10:30 in the morning for our 1 or 2 o'clock game. We'll be down there at 9:30 setting up the field for regular BP. And while we're setting up the field and the outdoor cage for BP, we have one of our other undergraduate student managers basically setting up the four tripods that I was telling you before, at each angle, and basically making sure that everything with the camera is ready, so that when BP is done and we have one of our student managers on the field to help with IO, right after IO is done, all we have to do is press start on the camera, and everything will be set. And then obviously, a day or two before the series at home, we'll go out to either Walmart or ShopRite, stuff like that, just buy game snacks for the weekend for all of our guys to have throughout the game. And I mean, that's just a little bit of what we do, pre-game, post-game, we'll go back up top, download all the chips for the cameras, line up the games, compress it, and do all that stuff. And that, it might quote unquote sound easy, but it just takes time. You don't just do a game in 30 minutes and be done with it. It takes 30, 40 minutes just to download the chip on our hard drive while you're lining it up, making sure that, you fix any mistakes that you made during the game. That'll be another, 20 minutes. And then it takes an hour and a half just to compress the videos. Not, and then another hour or so to upload on the web. So it does take some time, but it's definitely something that we're blessed that I can say that, we're blessed to have, just because I know a bunch of schools don't really have that. They'll just go the Rapsoda route, but this, using batch is something that we definitely, try to use as much as possible, even for inter squad games as well.
I'm glad that you finished off there at the end saying, it sounds easy, because that's the one thought I had in my head the whole time is like, from a former player's perspective, like we would go on the Bats website, we would check these pitches, and it was like, oh, I struck out this guy on the fourth pitch of the at bat in the sixth inning with 2 outs, and we go throw it on Instagram, and it's like, yeah, that's sick for us, but all the behind the scenes work that goes into that, man, like the ability that you guys have to make sure all of that data is compiled is awesome for us as players to go over. But also, like, the value of, I know a couple episodes ago on the podcast, I had a conversation about how it's tough to make adjustments on the things that we can't measure. So when you guys have the ability to give us all of this feedback from the video, from the Rapsodo, from our, scoring the game that's available on the Bats program, we have the ability as players to go back and check our adjustments, but then the coaches have the ability to pull that same stuff so that everybody's speaking the same language. So I think just the ability that you guys give us to make sure the operation runs smoothly is something that couldn't be accomplished otherwise. I know you brought up RJ Gomez, another awesome guy that works with you as a student manager there. We've had guys in the past, Danny Newton, Jimmy Catanzarite, who's working in the athletic center now. All these guys that have come through, man. Pete Barron is really hooked it up and put together a dream team of guys behind the scenes that are making sure everything runs well. I don't want to skip over you talking about going and buying the dugout snacks, because that's a note I had here. Just a little something that we throw in there. I know what I want you to tell the story on, because I'm sure I couldn't do it as much justice as you could, is just how popular the Uncrustables have become in the Rutgers baseball dugout.
Yeah, so I mean, Uncrustables with all of our guys, even to this day, is probably the number one favorite snack to have during game day. And I know with your dad, with JR, we usually go Thursday whenever we land, and we'll just go to Walmart and just buy all the snacks. And we always double up on Uncrustables because we know by Saturday after Saturday's game, it'll all be gone. You know what I mean? So it's definitely quote unquote, I guess you can say more work, but it's something that it's still valued, especially from all of our guys.
What's awesome is that, throughout all of our conversations so far, you've been like, you know what, it takes work. This takes work. That takes work. And I think when we talk about it or we look at it from a player's perspective all the time, I think it kind of almost goes without saying that, like, okay, I have to work hard in the weight room. I have to work hard in the classroom to make sure I stay eligible. I have to work hard in practice on my reps or whatever the situation might be. But it's awesome to see that, like, how that grind mentality applies to baseball as a whole. Like, to have a guy like you behind the scenes that's like, you know what, yeah, it's going to take work, but that's my job and I have to make sure I hold up my end of the bargain. So
Oh,
what I want to touch on from there is, I know we've had some conversation on the pod before about the combination of, or the pairing with, of like that grind mentality and how much we love it. So I would love for you to just give us some insight into like how that equation plays in your head. Like, even though it's all this work, like, what does it mean to you? How important is it? And, how much do you love the game through your lens?
for sure. I feel like everything, in order to be successful, everything comes with hard work, no matter what. I feel like to get to where you want to get to, to be Big Ten champs, to make a regional, to win and just keep going, it will take hard work and it will just take dedication. And I definitely that's something that, works and is involved in, like, it's important in the sport world, not just baseball. You know what I mean? I feel like me personally, I love the game of baseball, played started playing baseball at 4 or 5 years old, and there has not been a moment where I was just like, all right, I'm done. I'm not gonna do this anymore. It was something that there was always something new that I learned, or something that just pushed me to love the game even more. And I feel like, especially with the role that I have now, a bunch of guys, we had a couple guys, come and go, but in reality, the guys that are still there, where we have, RJ Gomez, we have Matt, we have two new managers in Adam and Ken, they wouldn't be there, or they still wouldn't be there if they didn't love the game. And at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. You can be a ops guy for a baseball team or a soccer team and just work a regular 9 to 3 job and just go home. But you don't see guys or girls doing that today. You know what I mean? They're in the office till 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. We had a prospect camp a couple weeks ago, and Mike Garza called me at midnight to make sure that I'd be there at the next morning at 8 a.m. and he was just leaving the office. And everything comes with grind, but you also have to love the game in order for you to be successful within the game.
Right. It's awesome to see how that love for the game and that passion can bring people together. I know the community that gets built around just the love for baseball, man. It's awesome to see. And it's cool to see how many different pieces have to fit together to make things come together the way that, we want them to, whether it's from a coaching side or a playing side or from an ops side or from an operational side. Like, all everybody wants to do is be successful. All anybody wants to do is win. And I think there are certain situations where people can say, you know what? I don't really want to go to practice today. You know what? I want to get in and out of here as a coach. I want to hit my fungos and get out. Or, I'm going to go set up BP and then I'm going to leave. Like, I think those are the situations where success doesn't become as present. And I think that the value in your piece there is that when you have a bunch of guys lined up who love the game as much as the people do at Rutgers, right? That's where the success really comes from. And I think that can be applied to whatever team. Obviously, in our context, we're going to talk about it from a Rutgers baseball lens, but I think that passion for the game being your centerfold and being the roots of where everything else branches out of, that's what lends itself to success. To see how each piece is really important, and if everybody can do their job really well because they love their job, now we're really cooking. Now we're on a roll and we're getting to where we need to be.
And obviously, like, the love for the game, if you love the game as much as you say you do, going to the field, setting up BP, in my perspective, isn't a job. It's a hobby. It's something that I love to do. Because yes, that is my job, but in reality, it's something that I'm dedicated to because I love the game. Because it'll get me closer to my end goal and what I want to achieve. So going into the office or going to practice every day doesn't feel like a job for me. It feels like a hobby. It feels like it's something that I love to do.
Yeah, how fortunate are we? I know we've talked about before, like the have to versus the get to mentality, right? So like the guys that, we're trying to keep at arm's distance are the guys that say, "Oh, I have to go to the field today," or "I have to go to the office today." And it's awesome that you're able to have that perspective of, "I get to go do this today." Like, you wake up in the morning, you're excited. It doesn't feel like work. You're getting after it because this is what you want to do. Like, it's so cool for me to have these conversations with everybody that's been on so far, and everybody has that same mentality, man, where it's like, how lucky are we to be so involved in this game that we get to do it every day?
For sure.
Instead of saying, I have to go to the office, I have to go to work. It's like, yeah, I get to go to the field. What's not sick about that?
Yeah.
So, fun one to kind of cap this section here. I know when I finished up at Rutgers, I was getting really frustrated that my fungo job was getting taken over by these 3-wheel machines that were launching fly balls and ground balls. So which do you prefer as a guy that's a high level fungo guy? Do you like hitting them the traditional way, or do you like having that bucket and throwing them into the machine?
Oh no, traditional way, 100%. I feel like, especially last year, where I got more on the field when it comes to hitting fungos pregame. It's something that it's not the same as if you just fed a machine every single time. It's just not. And I feel like hitting fungos is definitely up there over the just taking the easy way out and just using the machine and being like, okay, like whatever, like just keep going. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. No, I know exactly what you mean. I always want to hit the fungos. I think what
Yeah,
was really fun for me was somebody else would be on fungos one day on the pitcher sheet, and I'd get a call from Dan DeGiorgio or Kevin Welsh or Cam Love or one of those guys and say, "E, I need you to come in here and pick this guy up."
for
So
sure.
it definitely hurt me a little bit when Kyle Petteruto comes in with the three-wheel machine the one day and is just launching fly balls. I mean, that thing's got some ability, man. I can't hit the ball the way that thing shoots them, but there's definitely some pride in hitting some good fungos that just doesn't come when you're sitting there loading them into the machine.
Yeah.
So I'm glad we agree. I'm glad we agree. Before we get deep into the baseball stuff here, I know you and I have another thing in common, and that's Mets fandom. What do you got on the Mets? Where do you think Jacob DeGrom's going to end up, and how do you think Big Steve Cohen is going to iron out this free agent situation this offseason?
Hey, all I could say is that I believe in Uncle Stevie. He's the owner for the Mets. He bought the Mets out not to do, what the previous owners did. I feel like he's in there to win now and win for the future. So trust me, believe it or not, I'm a huge DeGrom advocate. He's someone that obviously, I mean, you could probably agree with me, someone that we look up to. And I definitely will be a little hurt if I see him in a different uniform come, March and April.
Yeah, DeGrom is definitely a guy that we want back in New York, playing for the Metropolitan. So we'll see how that works out. Like you said, Uncle Steve's got big pockets, so
For sure.
hopefully he can work something out where JD's back on our squad in the springtime. But yeah, I mean, it would be very Mets of them to find a way to flounder this free agent situation, especially with the number of guys they got. But we hope under the new management that's in place now that we start to turn a corner as Mets fans and we start to land some of these guys that we wouldn't have in the past.
For sure.
So we touched on earlier a little bit about just like being a part of that baseball community. And I know speaking from like a travel ball lens now, I think there's a lot of guys growing up that don't appreciate the people that are in positions like yours, where it's like, listen, I'm a player. There's some separation between like maybe the managers in high school that do the book and report the stats to the newspaper. And then we were fortunate enough at Rutgers where like that doesn't exist, right? Like I know you were always in an apartment living with guys that were on the team. You're tight with all of the boys on the team. You're a huge piece in the Rutgers athletics community. So just shed some light on the importance of that, the ability to like have the right people around you, build the community, and then just your piece in it and how it's been, your experience fitting into that mold during your time at Rutgers.
Yeah, for sure. So, going freshman year, I remember going into first day of practice. Well, for me, in November of my freshman year, we were actually inside practicing that day. And from the jump, I had a bunch of the guys came up to me with like Parker, the Georgia, Welsh, you. So I definitely feel like, quote unquote, as a student manager, you guys and or you and the other guys didn't really make me feel any different. You guys treated me as one of the guys on the team as if I was a player, and it's definitely something that transitioned into me living with a couple of the guys, sophomore, junior, senior year, and now to this day. And it's definitely something that I feel like it's from a manager's perspective, it's something that we appreciate a lot, just because you can just as a player you can just be like, okay, like he's a student manager, whatever, let just keep him off to the side. But Rutgers baseball, the guys on the team didn't do that and hasn't done that my 5 6 years that I've been, well, fifth year. But anyone that came on the team, they automatically made them feel as if they were an actual player. So from that perspective, it's definitely something that helps you grow as a person, and it definitely helps you build more connections.
I think that speaks a lot to your personality, and I think it speaks a lot to like a team culture type of situation where you came in there. I remember day one, like I don't remember the exact story, but one of your first days at practice, somebody was giving you a hard time about something, whether it was like having a bucket at the right place or hitting
Yeah,
fungos or something. And you were like, don't worry, bro, I got you. Like either ran the bucket out or like drilled a sick backhand fungo
yeah,
on the next rep. So it was like, all right, like we're gonna rally around Rigo. Like this is our guy immediately, and it like couldn't have blossomed in more into that. Like when you need something done, you're the man for the job. And I think too, from a team culture perspective, like it kind of ties everything together. We're talking about this have to versus get to mentality, right? And I think the culture that we were under there and that you're still under there is so much of like each part of this machine has to work together to make sure we're successful, but also like part of that have to versus get to mentality is like either I get to go be with my boys today or I have to go be with these guys today. And I
yeah,
think understanding that like, oh, we get to be around each other. Like this is an opportunity, this is a privilege that we have and making the most of it instead of saying, man, I don't want to hang around this guy or like what's this guy doing here? So I mean, I can't say enough good things. I'm sure I'm sounding a little repetitive about just like the just how awesome it is to have you and the rest of the managers around making sure everything runs smoothly and we get everything done the way it's supposed to be done. But it was awesome for me to see like how you were able to like get yourself in there and make your presence known and say, listen, guys, like I'm gonna steer this ship in the right direction for my end. Because I think too there's a certain element to it where it's like you take your job so seriously that you end up providing an example for everybody that you're around, right? Like when we look over our shoulder, Rigo's grinding to make sure his end of the job is done to perfection. So I better hold up my end of the bargain too. Otherwise, I know Rigo's going to get on me the same way, whatever the older guy or the captain might get on me.
yeah.
So you don't leave any room for excuses, man. You do a hell of a job. So earlier on, you touched a little bit on what your job looks like on the road and some responsibilities that you have. And I mean, outside of the dugout snacks thing, as fun as that might be, what are your responsibilities on travel day? And then what does your weekend look like once we land and we're on the road, making sure everybody's settled for the games?
Yeah, so prior to us leaving, because we usually would leave on Thursdays, just because we'd play Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then travel back Sunday night. So prior to Thursday, right after practice on Wednesday, we basically pack all of the bags. So we pack 2 to 3 bags of BP baseballs. We pack the infield bag, the pitcher's bag, and all the small little things that we need to use for the weekend, and we'll pack that all up and then set it in the locker room under the TV that we have up front. And right after that, we'd go up to the office, and with Pete, we'd basically make a whole checklist and make sure that we have everything that we need for the weekend. And we have, every guy is responsible to take something. Um, we just make sure that that's confirmed, and we basically make sure that the guys know, what they need to take on top of their suitcase and on top of the suitcase that they need for the weekend. Because every that goes with every program. Everyone basically is responsible for something. And then on the day that we travel, there's not much that needs to be done other than making sure that the guy that's responsible to take that BP bag or the pitcher's bag takes it before we get on the bus. And then, before we leave Rutgers, just counting up the guys, making sure that we don't leave someone behind. And the rest of the day, the rest of the travel is basically, smooth. It's not anything that we don't really have to do anything much other than, get the game snacks once we land, with the rental car that we will get with JR, with your dad. During the weekend, during Friday, Saturday, Sunday, just basically making sure that, our pitching machine in terms of like bats is all charged up. The iPad, the Surface, the cameras are all charged up, and just making sure that the game snacks are set, in the back of the dugout for each game day. And then obviously after every game, we make sure that the bats would be up by that night. And obviously, in some cases with hotels and Wi-Fi's, we didn't have, the ability to do that. So we'd make sure that it was up that next morning. We'd either go to a Starbucks nearby or somewhere nearby that had better Wi-Fi to upload those videos so that the guys could have, if they want to see their bat prior to game 2 or prior to game 3. And then on Sunday nights after the game, we basically pack everything up while the guys are showering after the game, post game, making sure that the post game meals are set, in order by either last name or by jersey number, just so that once the guys are done showering and changing, all they have to do is come out with their bag, grab their food, grab whatever equipment they gotta take on the bus and hop on the bus, and we're just going straight to the airport to catch a flight back to Newark. But that's just like an overall view of what we do on weekends. Obviously, there's small little minor things that we do, that isn't something that happens every week. Obviously, with delays on planes and stuff and on flights and stuff like that. We have to help Pete out with stuff with those issues. But that all comes on depending on whether we have to do those fix those mistakes and stuff like that.
It's awesome what you guys are able to accomplish in such small windows. I know like a lot of the times whether it's setting us up, I know those travel days on Thursdays get hectic and you guys are grinding to make sure everything gets where it needs to be. Everybody gets where they need to be. And that whole operation, like it can't be like a Home Alone situation, especially as we're nearing the holidays now. We're like, where's Kevin? Like you can't have that. And you guys are responsible for everything from where are the baseballs to where's Kevin. So making sure that whole front end of it runs smoothly. And then it's still funny to me how you just almost skipped over that whole operational piece in the middle during the weekend. Cause I know we had meetings, hitters had meetings, pitchers had meetings every morning after breakfast, going over video of who the starting pitcher was, who's in the lineup today, like what the hitters look like. And if it wasn't for the video and the data and the stuff that you guys are compiling, that just wouldn't even be an option for us. So it's funny to see how like you're like, yeah, that's just part of the job. That's just what we do. And it's on a daily basis where you guys are up late after the game grinding, making sure we have that at our disposal. And then I know from like a final piece for me, it's like when I'm going over this process with anybody that asks me, it's like, yeah, we travel on Thursday, we go play Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we come home Sunday after the game, and that's it. And then we're back and we do it all over again. But what role you guys have in making sure everything from getting us on the bus, getting us on the plane, making sure we have what we need to hopefully win games on the weekend, making sure we're fed, making sure our laundry gets collected, making sure everybody's back on the plane and everybody gets home in one piece. And then the job doesn't stop there. The same way we might hit the reset button as players, you guys hit the reset button and you still got to go to class at 8 a.m. on Monday after getting in late on a flight. And then just how that all breaks down. So it's awesome to see how you're so set in it now and you've gotten so good at making this thing look easy, like you've said earlier, that it's just like, yeah, that's just what we do. That's just that way the operation runs. So it's awesome to see that stuff, man.
Yeah, so obviously, me explaining what the, weekend looks like, obviously might not sound so stressful, but when you're in that situation and you're trying to make sure that everything is perfect, there's always going to be stress, you know what I mean? But it all goes back to what I was saying before with the love of the game. We do it not because we're forced to. It's just a hobby. It's something that we want to do because, it's not a task. It's like, just the love for the game and the
Right.
love for winning.
Right, of course. And it's like, it might even be higher stress for you guys because you can't miss a pitch. Like we have to have all that data recorded and you guys are the ones making sure that happens. I know like from a pitcher's perspective, right? Like, yeah, 2 outs and the bases loaded with 2 strikes. You want to make sure you get that guy out instead of giving up a bomb. Man, you got to make sure your timing's right. You got to make sure the video cameras are set up, rain or shine, whatever the conditions, you guys have that high octane every pitch. So it's awesome what you guys are able to accomplish, even with the pressure on your shoulders. And it's sick to just be on a player's side and say, yeah, I know Rigo's got me and I punched out that 4-hitter from Iowa with the bases juiced in the 7th inning. So I'm going to go throw that on my Instagram. I guess back in the day, before I was on this side of the fence, I could have given you a tag or two in the Instagram stories or something to give you some more love. But yeah, man, I mean, just how like behind the scenes that operation is able to run, like it's so sick to see the benefit of all that stuff and you guys being able to make that happen. give a shout out to the rest of the guys on your team. I know being a couple of years removed from it now, I don't have the insight that I used to. Obviously, Pete Barron does an awesome job as the director of player ops there, making sure all this stuff can take place. But give a shout out to the rest of the guys on your team, maybe some of the guys that were there when you were younger, and just the role that they've played in getting you to the point you're at now.
Yeah, so obviously starting off my freshman year wasn't an easy transition just because obviously, as an incoming freshman, you don't know, you don't know what to expect, especially, taking on the whole manager role for a baseball for a Division 1 Power 5 school. But I definitely have to give a shout out to Jimmy, who I can say at the time my freshman year, he was a senior. Yeah, he was a senior who is now he's working with what's it called? He's working with field hockey and softball at Rutgers University. So he's definitely somebody I gotta give a big shout out to just because he kind of was the one who helped me and molded me into who I am today, from a manager's perspective. Um, and we had a bunch of guys, Danny Newton, who just recently graduated from grad school last year. We have RJ Gomez, who's currently a junior at Rutgers. We also have Matt Marcel, who's a sophomore. We have Ken and Adam, who are new student managers that we just got this past September, and they've been a huge addition to the team just because you know as much as I would want to be there every single practice and every single inter squad, I do have a class schedule now with grad school where it's not like undergrad where I can just make my schedule around practice. With grad school, there's one specific schedule, so I'm usually not even there for practice until towards the end, the second half of practice on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And by having both of them on the team, it's definitely been a huge help on all of us, and especially the coaches. They can vouch for them too as well, just because I'm not there Tuesdays, Wednesdays. Maybe RJ has class on a Thursday, but we have Ken and Adam who will be there and can be there, every single day. And it's just been a huge addition to us, and it's just making us better.
And what has that been like from you personally, growing from a guy coming in your freshman year who was kind of learning the ropes and figuring out how all this stuff plays, now to being the guy that's kind of running the show from a manager's perspective and making sure all these guys are in the right place at the right time, understanding, what the job entails. How has that development been, and what does that look like from your perspective, just growing from newcomer as a freshman into the position you have now?
Yeah, so coming in this year, obviously coming back as a grad student manager, basically being given the responsibility of being in charge of our student managers and just making sure that I know exactly what the schedules are, so we have at least two or three guys at every single practice, and even when I'm not there Tuesdays and Wednesdays, making sure that we have enough guys that can help the coaching staff run a easy and smooth practice. And I could definitely say it's a little different than what I was doing the past 4 years, just because I was always the guy that was up in the office a bunch of hours before practice, just making sure that we had cameras, we had the surface, we had bats all up to date and stuff like that. To now where we gave that responsibility to RJ, and I'm basically there to help him with any questions that he has, or any of our student managers. To be honest, just anything that I was taught is what I'm trying to teach them, just to make them not only to benefit, just to help us out, but also to make them into a better person off the field.
Yeah, that has to be cool to be in a position now where you can look back with some reflection like that and say, you know what, I was in your shoes once, and now it's just still how important it is to you to make sure that you kind of leave the legacy of like, listen, as long as I've been here, things have been done the right way, and I want to make sure that my buddies that are on my team can make sure that happens even when I'm not here. So in that vein, talk a little bit about how baseball has given you an opportunity to pursue your education. Like, I know you said in the top of the show, like, you didn't even have Rutgers as your number one school coming out of high school. How has that changed now into like, did you always have a plan to go to grad school? What did your academic kind of outlook look like earlier on in your career? And how has baseball been able to provide you with that opportunity to pursue further education?
Yeah, so, like I was saying before, my initial plan was to go to University of New Haven. Looking back at it now, I'm happy and I'm thrilled that I didn't go that route just because I don't really know where I would be at if I took that route rather than just taking the safe route and going to Rutgers. So I definitely am happy that I made that decision by coming here. And it's been great. It's been a blast. I mean, coming into college back 4.5 years ago now, I knew I wanted to be in sports. I just didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. And ever since I stepped foot on the baseball field at Baton Field, it's given me more confidence and more of an understanding of what I want to do, and just staying in the sport world of baseball. It's definitely something that Rutgers baseball has given me a bunch of opportunities in terms of internships, working at Diamond Nation the past 2 summers, and just different tasks and different you know quote unquote steps to get to where I want to get to. But I could definitely say now that I'm happy with the decision that I made by coming to Rutgers, just because of all the opportunities that I've had and that I'm gonna have in the future.
It's cool to see throughout these conversations how like one thing leads to another in a way that we might not have thought about, earlier on in our careers. Because I think, speaking from like a high school travel ball lens, right? Like a lot of these guys try to get all the dominoes to fall a certain way when they're in high school trying to line up their future. There's definitely merit to that. By no means am I saying don't have a plan, but it's funny to see how sometimes that plan falls a different direction than you initially intended, and then it always seems to end up working out in a way that's super beneficial that you couldn't have foreseen even going into that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And that's kind of definitely that's something that what I was saying before. You know, Something that I always live by is that if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And it doesn't matter where you start; it matters where you end. You can go to a 2-year community college because you don't have if you don't have the grades, or if you don't if it's financially, if it works out to go to a 2-year community college, that's fine. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter where you go; it matters where you end up and how what you do to get to that end goal that you want to achieve. And that's that. I've just been riding that wave in terms of that, and just if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. That's something that I always go by.
Yeah, certainly. I think sometimes, especially in this game, or I mean, I'm sure it applies to other parts of life too, but just from our lens, like the further you go, the further, like you said, the further you ride the wave of baseball, the more things come up, the more potential that presents itself. That again, like when you're going at it from a high school lens of where should I go to college, maybe that's another piece to be considered is like where have guys like Rigo who are joining our program ended up? What opportunities have come up for him? Maybe that's a guy I look to and say, you know what, if he came in as just a kid that wanted to stay involved in sports and now he has internship opportunities and he's playing a management role within the team, like that kind of stuff is hard to foresee when you're a senior in high school, but those opportunities certainly exist. And it's awesome. It's awesome to, have the perspective now of looking back and saying baseball's been able to provide that for me. Quickly touch on, I'd love to hear about your experience at Diamond Nation. I know our guys at the baseball warehouse spend a ton of time there, and I know when I'm there, I'm always hitting you up trying to see if you're in the office that day. But hopefully now we get some reach out, and those guys will recognize your face if you're ever around. So just touch on what that experience has been like, what your role was there.
Yeah, so I have nothing but love for Domination. I started working at Domination 2 years ago, just because I was looking for an internship job, and I was living off campus in New Brunswick, and I was paying for a 12-month lease, so I was like, might as well just stay down in South Jersey and try to find a job down there. And it was just my luck that I came across Domination when they were in the process of trying to look for interns for that summer, and reached out to Marty Clark and Jim Rube, and they were kind enough to give me an interview, and still knowing that I was still part of baseball at Rutgers. They knew that I probably wouldn't have started at the exact time that they wanted me to start, but they knew that they would give they gave me the shot to start up right after our season was done. But it's been great. It was great over there at Diamond Nation, as an intern, being a tournament director, and just helping out, making sure that that each game starts on time, making sure that umpires have baseball, making sure that the scorekeeper isn't sleeping on their job, and just doing the small little things just to help the concourse run how it's supposed to run. And obviously, when we have college scouts and MLB scouts there, just making sure that they're good with anything that they need. If they need a roster package, stuff like that, just helping those guys out in that scenario. And then last summer, basically, I stayed and worked there all fall and winter. And obviously, with baseball, I couldn't work in the spring, but I started up again last May, and I was basically given the opportunity to get more of an office role in terms of administration, in terms of creating and helping create the grid for each tournament, making the pools, doing insurance, doing rosters, stuff like that. Just more office work, and obviously still being outside as a tournament director on during the weekdays and some weekends, but it's also incorporating the office life. And that's something that I kind of want to give thanks to Mike Cust and Nick. Both of them just basically gave me the opportunity to do something else at Diamond Nation, and just gave me more look on what everything is done behind the scenes at Diamond Nation, not just for a collegiate baseball team. And it's been a blessing. And like I said before, it's nothing but love to Diamond Nation. Unfortunately, I'm not there anymore just because of time and scheduling and stuff like that. But I definitely hope I have some kind of future with Diamond Nation, and I just have nothing but love for them.
I think you might catch some heat for calling New Brunswick and the Bridgewater Flemington area South Jersey, but we'll leave that aside, given that you're from way up north there. So I'll let you take a pass on that one, and we'll see what people have to say about that a little bit later on. But I think it's important to note just how you say, like, year over year, the first year you're kind of out with your feet on the ground, making sure things are happening the right way on the field. And then that second year, you're able to get in the office and all the stuff that everybody checks out online. Who's in my pool? Where am I in the standings? What time does my game start? Are the umpires here? Is the scoreboard correct? Like, from coaching at Diamond Nation, like, that's the stuff that we focus on. And again, I mean, like I've said before, if you guys want things done for your baseball team from an operational standpoint, if you want them done the right way, you got the guy to call right here. Let Rigo know, and he's going to figure that out for you, as long as somebody hasn't taken his time first, because it appears that you got quite the resume built up, man, and you're in high demand. So it's awesome to see how important, again, just to reiterate how important that behind the scenes stuff is, and to see, I think that's part of the game that not enough light gets shed on. But again, if it wasn't there for guys on my side, whether it be coaching now or playing previously, if that stuff wasn't handled to the high level that you handle it, our whole operation breaks down too. As you said, you hope you have a relationship with those guys in the future. And I know you got some time left. Obviously, the fall semester's winding down, and then we still got to play the season in the spring at Rutgers. What are your hopes for the future from a baseball position? Are you still looking to stay in sports and in baseball the way you were when you came out of high school? What is the next step from a baseball ops perspective as it applies to the rest of your career?
Yeah, for sure. So right now, obviously, everything's up in the air just because of the fact that, with the season coming along, I'm not really too worried on what happens, after the season. I'm kind of just focused on the season right now. But I'm definitely gonna be staying in baseball, and hopefully given an opportunity, whether it's, at Diamond Nation, or whether it's, in professional baseball or in collegiate baseball. I'm open to anything, and I'm just hoping that I'm given that opportunity come, post grad school at the end of August.
Awesome, man. So from where you sit right now, if you could have your dream job in baseball, what would that be?
I mean, I'd say vice president for the New York Mets, but obviously, you're not going to get that job, right from the jump. It's working your way up. So that's why, I have that whole mentality of, it doesn't matter where you start, it matters where you end. So, if I have to start at a low, level job, it is what it is. You know what I mean? It matters on how I use that experience to make me a better person to get me to that final goal.
Right. If we keep that love for the game at the forefront of our mentality, then the opportunities continue to arise, right? Just like a guy like we had Fitzy on a couple of days ago, like a guy like that who, yeah, the Brewers drafted him and now he's got to work his way up through the system because we all want to be big leaguers, right?
Yeah.
I know from my perspective, like if somebody asked me that question right now, I would say, yeah, I want to, when Buck Showalter finally retires, I want to be the manager of the New York Mets, right? So,
For
but
sure.
again, coaching at the high school level right now has been a blast. Being a pitching coach at the college level has been a ton of fun. And like you said, if we can rally around that love for the game, then the sky's the limit. So, hopefully, if you get that VP job a couple of years from now, just know there's going to be a coach in waiting if anything
Yeah.
opens up.
You'll definitely be the first one I contact.
I appreciate you, brother. Hopefully I've built up as big a resume as you have by then to get to that point. Um, so what I want to close us out with here is the same thing I've been asking everybody on the pod. Give us a shout out into your support system, the people that have helped you get to this point. How important have your parents been in getting you to where you need to be now, the rest of your family? Anybody that's in your support system that you want to show some love to, just give them a shout out.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it kind of goes. I mean, you kind of hit it too. My mom, my dad, my brother, my core support system. They've always been there. Supporting me every step of the way. It's something that I'm happy and I can say that I'm blessed to have a support system like them because they've never no to me. They've always supported any decision that I've made when it comes to, trying to find an internship job or staying down in South Jersey for the summer and just living on my own, just, to get that experience and put that on my resume. They've never said no to me and they've always tried to help me out as much as possible. And it's definitely something that I can say that I'm blessed with, like I said before, just because, it's important to have a support system. I feel like, by having a support system, it just makes you and helps you like work harder. And it's not only my parents, my brother, I have a bunch of friends, a bunch of former teammates from baseball that have always, and still stick by my side and are always, that one person or, that one group of people that can be like, okay, if I'm struggling with something, I can always go to them for help. And it's something that, I can say that I'm really, really thankful for having them.
Yeah, the value of that support system cannot be overstated, right? Like the people that are in our corner, as much as we like to sit here and think that we've built these resumes for ourselves and we've grinded to get ourselves to the positions that we're in, if it's not for the people behind us, right? Like we talk about your job being behind the scenes, man, and making sure that the operation runs smoothly. There's people behind the scenes, all of us that are making sure our operation runs smoothly. So awesome that you can provide that perspective and just shed some light on the people that have meant so much to you getting to this point. Rigo, it's been a ton of fun, man. Before I let you go here, let the people know how they can get at you on social media. Let them know your Twitter, your Instagram, wherever they can find you.
Yes, sir. So on Instagram, you can just put Rodrigo.e5, and my Twitter will be my first and last name. So Rodrigo Espinel with the one at the end.
Awesome, man. Yeah, we'll give you a shout out. We'll make sure you get tagged so that you can get the love that you deserve. Listen, man, I appreciate you coming on with me today. It's been a ton of fun, and close out the semester strong. Make sure those grades stay high, and let's get the Knights into the NCAA tournament this year, huh?
Sir, yes, sir. Thank you for having me, and I'm happy. I'm happy that you're getting into this whole podcasting, and I can't wait to see where you get where this goes.
I appreciate the love, brother. Thanks again, and we'll talk soon. For Rodrigo Espinel, I'm your host, Eric Reardon. This has been the Green Grass and White Bases podcast. We're signing off.
It's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game.